I'd love if you all, to start, look around the room for just a minute. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, and I want you to count how many blue items you can find in the room, all right? So ready? Go. Look around. If you find the curtains in the back, someone's jeans, a shirt. I know you're all very competitive. See how many you can find. Look around. Okay, stop. Now raise your hand if you are able to spot many blue items in this room. Just about everybody. There's a lot of blue. That's good. Got our Nomad crew shirts. And raise your hand if while you were looking around, you noticed while you were looking many red items. Raise your hand. We got one. She's wearing a red shirt. Just a couple. Okay, now I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. And I want you to look around again, but this time I want you to look for the red in the room. So go, give you 10 seconds. We got our red shirt. She's waving. You can't miss it. Another red shirt over here. Red shirt in the back. I love the red people are like, yes, me. Perfect. All right, now I want everybody to raise your hand this time if you were able to find several red items. Got everybody. It's hard to see you all, but I think that's everybody. Perfect. So we'll come back to that. But first, I want to tell you about 3 phone calls that changed the course of my life. So the first, I was 26 years old. I was just come back from a walk to try to clear my head. I was trying really hard to rehearse what I was going to say. And I came back to my apartment. I sat down on the floor. I was most comfortable. It's where I felt the most safe, on the floor, sitting on the rug against my back against the couch. And I think that my hands were probably shaking. I could hardly breathe. I was so nervous. And finally, I got my phone. I dialed into this conference line, and I heard the Pepsi jingle. So I used to work for Pepsi for many years, for about 4 years at this point. And anytime you called into the conference line to call into a work for anything, you would hear the same Pepsi commercial jingle over and over again. So I called, and again, I was just so nervous. I was calling HR to quit my job. Now, when my HR person, she finally dialed into the conference line. Everybody's always late at Pepsi. And she was the most cheerful person. There's a couple people like that here you've probably met where they're just like so excited about everything. And she picked up the phone. Her name was Jessica. She said, Marisa, so excited to talk to you. You've been on this sabbatical for 3 months traveling. We're so excited to have you back. Yeah, I'd taken a couple months to go and travel, and I said, yes, I went to Israel and Greece and Turkey. I went to the World Cup in Brazil, climbed Machu Picchu. It was incredible. And as many of you know, for travelers, if you're already travelers, it's so hard to explain what you've really experienced. And I just kept saying, I had the most wonderful time. I took this big, deep breath, and I said, but, you know, I had a lot of time to do some thinking while I was gone. Many of you might feel this way after this trip. And I said, I'm actually calling to give you my notice. It's time for me to do something different. I need to move on. And she said, okay, well, actually the past couple days, I was just talking to the VP of our entertainment team, and they've created this new music team while you were gone. We're trying to create it. And they want you to run all of our music partnerships on the West Coast. So I've been living in New York City working for Pepsi. She said, your boyfriend, I know he just took a job out in LA. We know you want to be out there. And we want you, it'd be great if you could run, we're always going back and forth from New York to LA. If you could just run all of our music partnerships from out there. You'll be going to the Grammys. For those of you not from the US, it's this huge award show. You'll be walking the red carpets. You'll be working on the Super Bowl halftime show. It's our big football game. You'll be working with all these new artists. And I just was so confused. I said, I think those were the words that were coming out of my mouth. And she said, Adam, he's leaving the team. He wants to talk to you. He's going to call you tomorrow in the next 24 hours. Are you available? And I think I looked at my phone as if I had anything to do. I had just come back from 3 months of traveling. And I pretended to just scroll through my phone. And I said, yeah, tomorrow, I don't even know if I spoke. I think I said, tomorrow afternoon works? Yeah. And she hung up the phone. And I just thought, had I just blacked out? Did I not just call to quit my job? What just happened? I had no idea. So again, I'd been working in brand marketing at Pepsi for many years now, and part of it I really loved to start. I worked with some of the most brilliant marketers in the world, many of which I still call some of my very best friends today. It was a wonderful place. There were huge brands. Obviously, many of you know them. But at the end of the day, after a couple years, I realized while everybody else was really excited about the latest apps and trends and marketing this and that, I just wasn't that interested. I was good at my job, but I just didn't care all that much about that. And I didn't really drink soda. Caffeine kind of hurts my head. And it was fun for a while, but I realized that I wanted to work on products that really more aligned with who I was and what I did. And so while it was really wonderful, it just wasn't quite right for me. This is why I was calling to quit. But spoiler alert, I took that job. I accepted that job. I kept doing it. And I paid the price for this. So fast forward 18 months, I was back home in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from the US, so I was back home for the holidays with my parents. And I got a text from my new boss on the music team, and she said, Marisa, call me ASAP. I was like, oh, God, what did I do? This is why I don't like having a boss. And I was just trying to go through my head, like, did I mess up? I was like these hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of music contracts that I had no right to be running probably. I was thinking, was there some soda emergency happening over the holidays that I needed to create some PowerPoint slide for? Soda emergencies are a very real thing at Pepsi, people. And I was just trying to figure out what was wrong. So I went upstairs and I called her back and she said, Marisa, I just got off the phone with HR. I thought, oh God. And she said, we actually have this new job for you. HR, okay. HR has been talking and we're launching this brand new product right at the beginning of the year. We're trying to put things together before the holidays. We want you to be on this new team. This guy named Rishi's running it. He really wants you. You can be in LA if you want to stay out there, or back in New York, back at our office, but it needs to be one of those two. And so, again, I'm not sure even what I said. I feel like I black out during these conversations. And I said, okay. And she said, we'll call you in 5 days. You have till December 30th to make a decision. She hung up the phone. So what HR didn't know, if you remember when I said I paid the price, well, this is how it manifested in my life. So during that time, I'd gotten engaged to that boyfriend, and then I had called that engagement off during this time. I had this severe crippling back pain in this lower back. Anybody with back pain out there? Red shirt, yes. She says, Michael, yes, got a couple of those. And I went to many surgeons, doctors, chiropractors. Nobody could figure out anything that was wrong with me. And I was still doing this job that, I did go to the Grammys, and I worked on the Super Bowl halftime show with Beyonce, and I went to these amazing small performances with artists like David Guetta and Sam Smith and Adam Levine, and by all means, my life should have been great. But I was still miserable doing this work. So I read a statistic recently that said that 85% of people are miserable in their jobs. Do we have any of those out there? Raise your hand, say yes. Very few, very nice. This is a special group of people, but we got a few. Right, so I was one of those people during this time. I was one of those 85%. And again, it took a toll, both physically and emotionally. So December 30th rolled around. I, at this point, was in Costa Rica for New Year's Eve and had to call my boss and give that decision. So you guys all know, I was looking for Wi-Fi in this house in Costa Rica to find a place where I could sit by myself and still have phone reception. So I sat on the second floor of this house, I'll never forget, on the floor where I like to be, in a bathroom. I closed the door to call my boss back. And this time, I said, it's been amazing. I've, loved everybody. I've learned so much, but I'm, so grateful for this opportunity, but I have to give you my notice. I've decided I'm actually going to move back to Atlanta and start my own business. And she said, you can't do that. No, just joking. This time I actually did it. They let me quit my job this time. So I had taken this big leap, right? I'd quit my job. I left this engagement. I left my home in LA. I literally left all of my furniture. I actually left my cat, who I just talked about, who I later got back. But I left everything that I knew. And I ended up back in Atlanta, living at my parents' house. Right where you want to land, right? So after all of this, I've been all these glamorous places. I've done all these amazing things. And here I was. I'd left this relationship. I left my job. I was so confused. I was scared. I was sad. I was crying a lot more often than I like to admit, to the point where even my parents were like, Marisa, we don't know what to do with you right now. And it was a terrifying time. But during this time as well, what better time to go to your 10-year high school reunion, right? So much fun. I probably would not have gone, except that two of my best friends from home were planning it. So I felt like I had to go to show up and support them. And the first person I talked to when I get there was this girl named Emily. And I had probably known her since I was about 7 years old, but I hadn't seen her in over a decade. And she was so kind. She said, Marisa, what are you up to? What are you doing these days? And these were my least two favorite questions of all at this time. What am I up to? What am I doing? So I said, well, I was working at Pepsi. I was living in New York. I was living in LA, and I just moved back to Atlanta 6 months ago to start my own business. So when people ask me at this time, once I quit, what do you do? What are you up to? I hated it. And I would always say, well, I used to do this. I used to work in New York. I used to work at Pepsi. I used to be engaged. I used to have someone who loved me. I used to have my own home, my own place, and pay my own bills. I used to be a capable adult. And I just felt so lost and so insignificant at this time. I had totally lost my identity. My identity was wrapped up in this job and this glamorous things and this life that I was living. And I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do or where I was supposed to work anymore. But here's why I was back in Atlanta. Though my mother had closed her bakery 20 years ago, had been open for 20 years, she ran these 4 really successful restaurants in Atlanta and closed them when I was about 7 years old. And there used to be lines out the door on nights and weekends. There was this huge demand, and I would walk to the front of the line. I was so proud of everything she did. So in those 5 days between when I had to decide if I was taking this job or not, and I had no idea what to do, I just knew I couldn't go back to LA, and I couldn't go back to New York, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. I decided I was going to bring back my mother's business, this bakery. But I had read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Raise your hand. You've read that here. If you haven't, go for it. It's probably why I'm guessing everyone raising their hand are already nomads or trying to be. And it changed my life, and I wanted to live this remote life. And so instead of opening physical bakeries like she had, I decided I would only sell them via e-commerce. I'd do all the baking myself to start, and then outsource it a la Tim Ferriss, have somebody else do the shipping. I could run this business from anywhere in the world. And so during this time, as I was setting up this business, part of the time I'd feel so excited. For once, I didn't have a boss or a boss's boss or a boss's boss's boss to run anything by. I could do everything myself. It was really fun. It was creative, and I felt like I was creating this business that was mine. But also during this time, and I would say mostly during this time, as I was learning to bake brownies with my mother in my childhood home, not making any money, I would think, oh my God, did I just quit my job to bake brownies? Like, what the hell am I doing? I thought I'd lost my mind most of the time. It was terrifying. As Michael said, it's this mindset that really, really gets you. But what I remember most during this time are strangers and friends and family members of people saying, Marisa, that took so much courage to quit your job and start this business. That's so cool. And then they would say, it took so much bravery to leave that relationship that wasn't right for you. Even though it was a best friend of mine, it just wasn't right for me. So bravery and courage were two of the things that, though I felt anything but that at the time, I felt like I was just doing what I had to do, were two of the most important skills that I've taken with me throughout this time. So about 6 months later, the holidays rolled around again, and now I finally saw some money coming in from this business. People were sending my brownies out to people for the holidays, for corporate gifts, and to friends and families, and I got to move into my own place again, and I was like, things were looking up, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And as I was baking so many brownies for the holidays, I realized one really important thing, and that was that I absolutely hated baking. I hated it. I hated it so much. In fact, I have not baked a single thing to this day. I'll tell you about that soon. And I thought for a while, and I kind of knew this going into it, but it was this family business, and I loved my mother's story, and people always asked for her products, and I thought, yeah, whatever. I know how to market a business. I got this brand experience. I can build a story, and someone else will do the baking. It'll be fine. But I realized I had to be the face of this business, and I actually became a vegan at this time, too, so I couldn't even eat the products that I was baking. So it just wasn't quite aligned with me. But just like 18 months before, like when I was in LA, when I wanted to quit my job that first time, I knew what I was doing, what was right, but I just didn't know what would be better. Does anybody have that feeling here? Yeah, we got a few. It's like, you know you're not in the right thing, but what do you do? What's next? So during this time, I became obsessed with, I was binging podcasts as much as I could. Anytime I'd go for a walk, the shower, walking around, anywhere. I was listening to every entrepreneurial podcast I could to learn how to build a business, how to sell things online, how to build an email list, all of these things. And I was reading every single self-development book I could read in my spare time, which, by the way, when you're newly single and living by yourself for the first time ever, is a lot of spare time. I got to consume a lot of information, just learning a lot. And I came across this podcast of a man who taught how to build online courses. And so this blew my mind. I was busy baking these products with low margins and shipping and dealing with all of these complicated things. And then I had this man telling me, you can just package together your information, just sell it. And this was very appealing. So I didn't know what to do, but he asked a series of questions. Things like, what are you good at? What do you like to do? What do people ask you for help with? What do you enjoy doing? All of these lists of questions. What do you do in your spare time? And as I thought about this, I wrote down the answers to these questions. And I realized that anytime I was traveling for work all over the country, I would sneak away in my spare time to go look at college campuses. I just really loved them. I found them like a very magical place. And I loved going back to my own college where I went to help with recruiting and help students. I loved helping high school students figure out which colleges to go to. And so I decided to start an online course helping families with college admissions. So it felt more right than baking. It wasn't totally perfect, as I came to realize, but it allowed me my next step, which was that I could totally work from my computer anytime I wanted, and I became a digital nomad. Could work from anywhere. So I did what many digital nomads first do. I booked a one-way flight to Bali. Anybody done that out here? Yes, you. And Michael, I love it. And this is where I found my next clue. So during this time, I was in Bali for 6 weeks, and I became really good friends with this girl named Sarah. And she had just graduated from college, and she was in this relationship. She didn't know if it was right for her. She was doing some kind of freelance work, which she liked, but she didn't quite know what she wanted to do. And she had seen all of her friends who had just graduated from college were all in these corporate jobs in their offices, and it was kind of the opposite problem of us. She was like, do I need to be doing that to start? She had no idea. She was just very confused about everything that was going on. And so every day I just got so excited. I was coaching her about how to help her, how to make these decisions, what should she be doing, how she should find this job, how to find what she loved to do. And every day she would say, thank you for being my life coach, Marisa. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do without you when we leave. She kept calling me her life coach. And I was like, what is this life coach thing? I've never heard of it. But I was always an athlete, and I thought, hey, I'll be a coach of any kind. That sounds great. I love to help people. And so this coaching thing was still top of mind when I left Bali and I flew to Singapore. And I was on the plane with a girl named Eva. She was from Finland. And it was a late night flight, and everybody else had, the lights were out, they were sleeping, they were napping, they were watching a movie. And Eva and I got into this really deep conversation about what she should be doing. So she had left her job for 3 months to do some traveling through Southeast Asia. And she didn't love the job she was doing. She was on her way to India to go to a 2-week yoga retreat. Sounds familiar to many people. And we just got into this deep conversation. And throughout the flight, I helped Eva figure out what she wanted to do next, what she was going to do when she got home, how to deal with this job, how to deal with traveling. She was, as Michael said, she was so anxious throughout this time. She had so much fear and anxiety. And by the time we landed, she said, can I have your business card, Marisa? You're a life coach, right? And I was like, what is this? So it kept happening. So Thailand, Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, everywhere I went, I kept having these conversations where people would tell me their life stories. And I love it. I'm like, I always like to listen. And I kept being able to help them time after time after time. And I never knew that life coaching was a thing, that it was a job, but people kept asking me, will you be my life coach? Are you my life coach? And so by this time, I learned to keep listening to those clues. And so by the time I got to the Philippines, after a day going to the most beautiful beaches, I loved the Philippines, I went back to my hotel room, did some research, signed up to get my life coach certification. And soon after I became an official life coach. I helped people figure out their careers, their lives, their relationships. And someone told me yesterday, I don't know if you're here today, called me a clarity advisor. I really like that a lot more. I've become a clarity advisor. It's what I love to do. But the point was that I learned to listen to these clues along the way. When I heard things, I started to say, what am I good at? What do I like? What are people telling me? And I learned to take action each time I actually heard these clues. So what I want to help you guys figure out today are, what are your clues? What actions are you going to take? It's a scary question, right? What are we going to do here? So a lot of you, I know when I tell people a story, they say, okay, but Marisa, I don't want to quit my job and start my own business. Or even if I did, I don't have enough money. Or even if I did, I don't know what I want to start next. I don't have enough money. I have bills to pay. It's a scary thing. I don't know what to do next. And I hear you. But I want you to remember that I was once in your shoes too. So again, when I was at Pepsi, I knew with all of my heart, my gut, my soul, whatever you want to call it, that it was not right for me. But I just didn't know what was better. And so I had this hour-plus commute to and from work each day, which I hated in New York. And during this time, I'd always think, what should I be doing? What's next? What would be better? What am I meant to be doing? What is my purpose? And I wanted some fairy godmother to wave her wand and tell me. That didn't happen. But I just didn't know what was next. And so I would think, well, I love sports. Maybe I could work somewhere like Nike or Under Armour and still do brand marketing. But I didn't even like brand marketing, but that was the farthest I could see. So as you guys can see, I could only see the blue in the room when I had you guys look around. So I want to give you another example. I had a client named Erica who heard me talk at a workshop like this and signed up to do some coaching with me. She was a college student, and she was really confused because everyone in her family went into either engineering or medicine. And so this is what she felt she had to do too. There's a lot of family pressure. I know a lot of you can relate to that. This is what you go to college to do, right? And so as she talked to me, I said, well, which of those two sound most appealing? What kind of work would you do? And she gave me some answers, and she just sounded really unexcited, she just didn't know what to do next. And so I asked her this series of questions that I go through with some of my clients, again, of what do you like? What are you good at? What do people ask for your help with? What do you love to help with? And as we went through these questions, she said, Marisa, I'm so surprised. Every question I ask almost comes back to this one thing. She said, I love event planning. So Erica was one she was always planning events with her friends. She was part of all these clubs in college, and she was always the one pulling these events together. She loved being around people. She felt really motivated, energized in these groups, and she said, I would really love to plan big events and plan weddings. I think that would be so fun. So I said, okay, Erica, shut your eyes for a second. And I said, imagine in 5 years you meet with me and you are talking to me. And you were to tell me that you were planning these huge weddings and these events, and you were successful, and you were having so much fun. And this was over the phone. I kid you not, I could feel her smiling, just feel her so excited. And for the first time, she said, Marisa, that would be so exciting. I cannot wait. That sounds like the best thing. And then she got in her head some more, and she said, but my family, they won't get it. We go into engineering and medicine, and all of my friends are doing these big things and studying these cool things, and you don't go to college to do event planning. But this is what she loved to do. This was her purpose. And so by asking these questions, I helped Erica to see the red in the room. So when people ask me, what's been the hardest part of all of this, of starting these businesses, and they think that it's going to be the business parts that are so hard. But without a doubt, every time I say the hardest part of all of this was leaving that job at Pepsi, was jumping off that cliff. And I won't lie, the past 3 years have often felt like I'm still in free fall. It is not, I don't want to sugarcoat this for anyone. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not easy, and it's been terrifying. I cry sometimes still. Sometimes it's great and it's sad and it's hard, but each step I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to what I'm meant to be doing. So when people say, are you upset that you failed at this dessert business, that you ended up closing it? And every time I say, absolutely not. It was years of blood, sweat, and tears, literally all 3 of those in the kitchen quite often. But I never regret it because it gave me permission to, again, jump off that cliff, to try something new, to stop caring what other people thought, to stop caring what my peers thought, to start figuring out what I actually like to do. And most importantly, it gave me permission to fail. So as one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, always says, failure is the mother of all success. I want to repeat that again because this is so important. Failure is the mother of all success. We got that. So there's a statistic that says that the average millionaire spends time doing about 17 different businesses or concepts before he hits it big on the 18th try. 17. So we often look like we're supposed to just know what we're supposed to be doing right away, and we see these people on social media who just, it looks glamorous. But what you don't see behind is all the trial and error that it takes to get to where those people found what they love to do, to where they found what they love to be successful. So the inventor of the light bulb, Thomas Edison, it said that it took him somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 different tries to get a light bulb to light up. 1,000 to 10,000. And when a reporter once asked him, Thomas, they called him by his first name, Thomas, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? And he said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. It took 1,000 tries, 1,000 ways that didn't work to get it right. So again, I want you to start thinking about your lives like this. So if you had asked me 10 years ago what I was going to be when I was older, I never could have told you I'd be a life coach or a clarity advisor. I still love that. I think that's who told me to be that. I never could have told you. One, I didn't know that a life coach existed. And two, I just didn't know, I didn't know I could do this as a career, and I didn't have enough life experience at the time to do anything. But now if you ask any of my friends, people who know me, they say, that's so perfect for you. How did you not know? I was like, that's a good question. And I couldn't have told you I'd be a speaker. I didn't have anything to speak about, and nor did I know you could make a career getting paid to speak in different places. So there's a quote that I love that I've actually, even in this 24 hours with Nomad Cruise so far, I think I've heard like 4 different people say. And that's by Steve Jobs, that says, laughing, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect your dots looking backward, right? So these dots, again, I never could have known where all these paths would lead me. But having my job at Pepsi led me to believe that I could create my own business, which led me to learn about online courses and create this college business where I learned to travel, where I met people who told me that I could be a life coach. And then as a life coach, I got on those podcasts that I was listening to as a guest to teach people my own ways. And that's where I became a speaker. Someone asked me if I was a speaker, and I said, well, that sounds good. That's my next clue. So I keep listening, I keep going. And again, you don't know what dots will connect you, but it takes courage, and it takes bravery, and it takes this trial and error of not caring if you will fail to try something new in order to have dots to connect. When I was at Pepsi, and I think back to my own time, Pepsi was this only dot that I knew. And so I couldn't see anything else because I wasn't trying anything. I wasn't giving myself the ability to create new dots in my life. So this journey, fortunately or unfortunately, it never ends. Even as I stand before you here today, I've had these fabulous conversations in the past 24 to 48 hours with these amazing people, and I already know I have more clues. I'm really interested, as Michael said, I love the woo-woo stuff, that's me. And I know I love stuff with chakras and energy and healing and all of this mindset work that I want to be integrating into my own coaching and speaking and all of this stuff. And I'm still figuring out exactly how that works, but I'm listening to my clues, and I will keep evolving. It never ends, right? And so as I want you to all think, I want you to shut your eyes for a second and think. I want you to really for a second shut your eyes and imagine if I told you you could not fail, what would you do next? What's your next clue? What's that next action that you need to take? You all thinking? So as you can open your eyes if you know it. Half of you probably are, as soon as you shut your eyes or as you've been listening to this, it's like you already know in your gut. You know that next step you need to take. And maybe you haven't done it yet because you need that mindset work. You have to overcome that failure, overcome the fear, overcome the scariness of all of it. And some of you might, as Boris said in the beginning, this question of what's your purpose? What are you meant to be doing? You probably still hate me because you're like, Marisa, I still don't know. Like, thanks for nothing, right? And I want you to know, I remember sitting at Pepsi, during my Pepsi days, I was at this conference and someone said, what's your purpose? What are you meant to do in life? What is your unique gift? What's your unique ability? And I was like, screw you, I don't know, right? Like, I had no idea. So I want you to know that if you feel this way right now, that is totally okay. And at that point, it starts with asking yourself those introspective questions. Again, what do you love to do? What do you hate to do? Where do you feel most alive? What do people ask for your help with? What do people tell you you're good at? What do you think you're really good at? And what area can you serve? So it takes a lot of questions. I'm not saying this part is easy, but that's where to start. So again, as I said, I'm still learning, I'm still evolving, but I now know my mission. And my mission is to change that 85% number so that 85% of people in this world, or maybe 100%, are excited about the work they do, are excited about their relationships, their lives that they're living. This is my mission. And my execution, whether I'm coaching people one-on-one or doing group courses or online courses, or I have this dream to run retreats with people around the world. And no matter what, if I'm doing workshops, seminars, or talks, it all leads back to the same thing. I've finally gotten to my purpose. But it took a whole lot of trial and error and a lot of tears and moving back with my parents and all of these things to get there, right? I never said this path was easy, but it is possible. So my hope for all of you is that you ask yourself those introspective questions, that you listen to those clues when you hear them, that you look for the red in the room, that you overcome the fears that come, be brave, be courageous, and not care if you fail over and over again, because each time it's going to take you closer and closer and closer to where you need to be. So whether your mission is planning events or coaching or building software programs, or we heard some fun ones yesterday in my group, some like acro yoga, whatever it is that you bring to the world, whatever your mission is, I hope that you give yourself the time to, again, listen to those questions, be brave, be courageous, and look for the red in the room, and the green, and the yellow, and the blue, and the purple. Thank you, guys.